What's up, race fans, and welcome to another episode of the Pecino Report. This is season 2021, episode 17. It's the John McPhee episode, that canny Moto3 rider. So we're in the middle of a holiday and we don't really have any live racing to talk about. So we thought we'd bring you a wonderful special. We've been promising to do this for a long time. We've got a fantastic special guest for you today. Before we get to that, I'll just quickly hand over to my co-host, Andra. Andra, how are you doing with no racing? What have you been up to?
I've got nothing to say.
I've got nothing.
There was one guy at work today. He works in our IT department. I know that he watches the races every now and then. Yeah. I had him bailed up for about 15 minutes just listening to me talk crap about all this today. I could see he was trying to back away, but I'm like, no, stay and talk.
You were talking at him.
I was. I really was.
Wonderful. And El Jefe, how you doing, boss? I'd like to say you're on holiday, but from the conversation we just had before, I think you've got more work now than you ever have before.
Well, luckily, I have much more work than before, last year. Luckily, yes, I am. Look, I would like to have 36 hours days, because I have so much things going on inside my brain that I need a lot of hours to.
Or a clone. Can you imagine a twin Manuel?
Oh, I'm sure there's a few ladies around the world who will be very happy with that.
Well, my life would be easier for sure.
Indeed. And
go on. Sorry, let me explain you one article I am writing about.
Yep.
That I think is very interesting. It's about the strange nationalities that have raced in the World Championship.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because I think that only the super hard cores of motorcycle know, for example, that there have been Russians racing in the championship.
Crazy
with their
Russians.
own bike called Vostoks.
Oh, the Vostok.
Vostok. And in the times of the Iron Curtain, also Cubans raced with these bikes. So there's a lot of big story going on with this. And I will surprise people because I got photos of these guys, pictures, black and white, of course.
Yep.
And it's very funny because all the helmets were just, I think, in the photos, they look like gray and with a big red star in the front.
Yeah, there's the target. There you go. There it is. Now we look forward to seeing that one coming out on pecinogp.com soon, mate. Definitely. So look, let's kick off. And without further ado, it's a warm welcome to our wonderful special guest. It's Mr. Neil Bedhead Morrison himself. How are you doing, Neil? You look like you just got out of bed there, mate. How's your holiday treating you?
It's treating me pretty well, yeah. I'm still basking in the warm glow of last night's football result.
Oh, yes.
European champion.
It's a bad line. It's a bad line. You're cutting out.
Yes. So, yeah, I may have just kind of tumbled out of bed, hence the kind of wayward hairstyle.
No, I think we'll let you off this time, mate. You've been a very, very busy boy along with the rest of the paddock over the last few months. So we'll definitely give you that one. So what have you been doing to keep yourself busy this last week or so, mate?
Relaxing, really. I mean, the COVID situation in Barcelona at the moment is kind of out of control. So when I came back from the Netherlands, my flatmate had got COVID, so I couldn't come home for about a week, and then midway through last week, I had close contact with a friend who had also got COVID. So I had to isolate for 5 or 6 days. So it's been fun and games, basically. I'm sure it's kind of the same back in the UK at the moment, from what I hear. But things are a wee bit nervy here. You don't want to go
one step forward, two steps
places.
back, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
But other than that, just relaxing, basically, recharging the batteries.
So you can't get to the shop to buy a razor?
That's my excuse. I've been isolated.
So, I'd grow that too if I could.
Who says you can't?
Okay, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. Indeed. So we've got Neil on today. So we're hoping that we can wind him up and let him go along with Manuel. We want to have a special where we talk specifically about Moto3 and Moto2. There's been some absolutely amazing racing, and we know there's just as much news and just as much things going on. So first of all, Neil, what's your appraisal? We'll start with Moto3. What's your appraisal of the season so far in Moto3? How do you think things have been going?
I think it's basically all been about one man. Pedro Acosta, I think, is the kind of new sensation in racing. It's been pretty wonderful watching a guy who's so young, seems so fully formed in the first half of his rookie season. Numerous occasions that we've seen him just ride like one of the more experienced guys in the class. You definitely get the feeling that this is the start of like another brilliant career, and you feel kind of almost quite privileged to see these opening moments. I have a similar sort of feeling like I had when Marquez started winning races in 125s, when Vinales started doing the same thing a few years later.
Were they as exciting as him, or do you?
I don't think so.
You reckon
Not
he's
this early? I don't think so. No. I think he seems definitely more fully formed than both of those guys at this stage. So that's been pretty ridiculous. And from what we're hearing, he's going to Moto2 next year, so he'll be doing that pretty rapid ascension through the classes. So I mean, Manuel, you must be happy, because Spain looks like they've got another superstar that could dominate.
Look, and I don't know if you agree, but the difference, because when Mark was in 125, what was special in him was he was super brave. He was very brave. He was a very, very small guy, and he crashed a lot. He broke legs, but his being so brave was something, and fast, of course. That was something impressive. With Pedro Acosta, what he's different, because he does things different. It's not he's fast, but when you see him riding, he does the things different than all the rest. And this is something that even has attracted the attention of the big riders. We have asked Mark about him, we have asked Morbidelli and all the riders, and they all say the same. He does things different. And in Mark's words, he said, look, he will win the championship this year, and he will be in MotoGP sooner than later.
Yeah.
Is Mark's word. So
do you think he's going to be like a few of the other ones, like 1 year in Moto3, 1 year in Moto2, and straight into MotoGP? Or do you think he'll hold in Moto2 for a few years to consolidate?
I think he's so young. I don't know if he's 16 or 17, Neil. I exactly
17 now. Yeah,
17. So why hurry? Why hurry? He
has
but on the other side, I have spoken with riders, ex-riders, that have a different vision than us, and they say he's losing his time in the lower categories. Push him up immediately.
And he's bigger, isn't he? Like, he's growing. He's obviously quite big for his age too, so he needs to. Isn't he a bit bigger?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
I thought he was a bit taller than some. Is he, Neil?
On Moto3 standards, you would say he's bigger than average for sure. But he's not huge just yet. But yeah, he's certainly like a kind of well-built guy for sure. But yeah, just what Mamo was saying there. I think like in terms of his riding style, he's already in some ways like doing things that are being followed by some of the other guys in Moto3. How he brakes, how he's able to turn the bike so well when he's braking, and also just you see a lot of the Moto3 guys, and they come into the class and they have a bit of success, and there's lots of posing, there's lots of photos on Instagram, they're looking at how their hair is, the opposite of me, obviously. And Pedro just seems to be, the complete opposite of that. He doesn't really engage in social media. Akiayo was saying a few weeks ago that he spoke to him after the Doha GP, the race that he won after starting from pit lane. And he said, so I guess you've probably been pretty busy the last week, how's it been? And Pedro just said, well, it's not been that busy actually, because I changed the SIM card on my phone and I deleted my Instagram account, and I focused on training. And I was just thinking, like, this is not your average teenager in how he's dealing with success. So I think he's definitely got it's clear he's got the talent, but it seems that he has the mindset. He knows, and he can differentiate what's really important in getting the best from himself in a competitive sense. So I think when you hear things like that, you think this guy's going far.
How's his teammate dealing with his success?
Yeah, not too well, I would say.
My favorite.
We've spoken about that a few times. We've had a few words about Masia here on the show a few times, and he's like Pedro clearly in his head.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to look at Massia's recent record. I mean, it's been pretty shocking.
It's a shame because I thought he was. I've actually got a piece of paper stuck on my fridge on who I think is going to win the top 2 riders for each grade, and I shouldn't share it because it's probably really embarrassing. But I actually, as much as I don't, I'm not a huge fan of Masia. I've got him written up there, but he's psychologically really struggling with this rookie that's come through, and he's not the number one.
Something significant is that Pedro's manager is the same that Jorge Lorenzo's manager, and the one who manages Jorge Martin as well. So the manager is a guy who knows how to move in the paddock and find good places for his rider. In the case of Acosta, look, I think hearing what the riders say and seeing what he does on the track, I can imagine perfectly that big factories are already trying to hire him in the future. If I were Honda, I would have done a contact immediately already.
They've got to prize him away from KTM first, don't they?
Yeah, but they have a clause. I think in KTM, and this Neil probably knows better than me, all the riders have a clause, right? Jorge Martin, for example, had to pay $500,000 to get rid of that contract so he could switch to Ducati. And all these have, in fact, all the contracts have a clause that to break the contract, you have to pay.
Yep.
But what Dorna is trying to avoid is a kind of a war in this, respect. When a rider is in another factory, just approach him when his contract is finishing, not in the middle of the contract.
Yep.
Do they listen?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because if not, it will be a mess.
They don't try to just get it because they've got to all get that edge, obviously, because like you say, there's going to be so many people chasing certain riders. Or is it more once they start fighting, it's about money and what they're going to, the bike they're going to give them?
I think that they would destabilize all the system, because imagine in the middle, like what happened with Raúl Fernandez. That was the big example. He got an offer from Yamaha, big offer, interesting offer. He got a big offer from Aprilia while he was riding in this season.
Yeah.
A 2 years contract in Yamaha +1, direct factory contract, something that not even Morbidelli has. In Aprilia, the same. They told him 2 years contract +1. So at the end, KTM went to Carmelo, to Dorna, and said, look, we spent so much money in bringing up these guys. We pay the Rookies Cup. We have our own bike in Moto3, and so for them, at the end, a kind of gentleman agreement imposed by Dorna, I would say.
Yeah, indeed. That's. I just want to pick up on what you guys were saying there about the bikes in Moto3. We see, like for me, I'm just an average layman. I'm not a professional by any standards when it comes to motorcycle racing.
You're a co-host of the Pecino Report.
Oh, stop it. And Andra's definitely a lay person as well.
Oh, I get it.
So, yeah, I see what you did there. For the guys that are watching Moto3 on the TV, like us, week in, week out, we see the KTMs up the front every week. We see teams like Leopard that have been fast the whole time. Why have they gotten so dominant in Moto3? Is there that much variation between engines and chassis, or is it really tightly controlled?
I mean, I would say that all the bikes in Moto3 are pretty evenly matched. You just look at even some of the lesser teams, some of the teams that are less well funded, nowhere near kind of factory level. You think like the CIP team that in recent years McPhee has ridden for, Darren Binder's ridden for, Kai Toba this year's riding for. I mean, those guys have all been on the podium on like basically what you would think would be the kind of the poorest bike on the grid.
Yep.
And it used to be that there was some variation between, the Honda and the KTM, but I think now they're both slightly different, obviously. But I think they have they are really evenly matched in terms of top speed, and you just have to look at the racing. I mean, it's so rare that we ever see guys breaking away at the front. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we just have such a kind of parity. Like all the bikes are more or less the same, and it's becoming quite difficult, as we've seen in certain races, for riders to make the difference.
Yeah.
Those Leopard bikes are on the straight, to me, are like a Ducati and MotoGP. They just blitz them every
They
time.
always seem to have so much more top end.
Yeah, they've got, I don't know. I mean, it's clear that some guys, some other teams are slightly suspicious of what Leopard does, because I think it was last year, Sky Racing lodged a protest where they asked basically the technical people at Dorna, at the FIM, to check the bike and make sure that everything was completely legal, because they were sure that there was something not quite right going on.
Open up the engine.
Was absolutely killing it last year, yeah.
But they haven't found anything illegal. So you have to maybe put that down to just know-how and experience. I mean, Christian Lundberg, the technical director there, he's a guy that's been around for a long time, and he's had some world champions in his time. So yeah, it's a bit of a mystery.
Interesting, because they've even had different riders. So
it has not been only this year where this bike has been controlled by the organization. It's every year it's the same, and they never find anything. Yeah. So it's down to Nielsen, probably Christian Lung. How do you say? Lundberg. He is kind of a wizard with this bike.
Clearly, he knows how to get the best out of the engine for sure. All right,
I have
wonderful.
one question for Neil. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you go.
Neil, the fact that Moto3, somebody who qualifies 15th can win the race, isn't that a sign that the category is too equal? I mean, not selective. The bike are they are not challenging, so that almost 15, 20 riders can win a race. So in Moto3, it's funny because qualifying is not that important. We have seen Acosta winning, starting from the pit lane. And we have seen in the past riders starting 15th, 14th and winning races. Don't you think
changes on the last straight? Like massive.
Yeah, no, but the thing is that, and it makes difficult to realize, apart from some like Pedro Costa, who is the fast rider, who isn't, because everyone is capable to win. So I don't know if you agree with me that the bike should be more difficult to ride to make a kind of selection.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think this is a thing that you obviously have noticed, and I think that a lot of Moto3 team bosses have noticed. I even think the FIM stewards are aware of this, and that something might have to change in the formula in the next decade, just because, I mean, first of all, it's not always safe. We saw that in Barcelona. Yeah. I mean, that was just a horrible kind of race. Even though it was ridiculously exciting, it was terrifying to watch, and there were so many near misses in that race that I kind of lost count. And then also, it doesn't necessarily reward the guys that have done the best work over the weekend. And I know it shouldn't always be the case. There should always be a degree of unpredictability in racing, and that's one of the reasons why we like it. It's one of the reasons why we love Moto3. But yeah, you do feel that the riders that have perhaps worked in the right way through free practice should be rewarded more often on Sunday, because there are times where it is just a complete lottery. It's like taking some random names out of the hat and just saying, okay, this guy's the winner. I think I was speaking to Akiayo a few weeks ago in Germany about this, and he was saying that, these little Moto3 4-stroke 250cc bikes, they're so forgiving that when you make a mistake, basically you're not punished. The old 125s, if you made a mistake, you would crash, or you would run off track. Basically, your race would be ruined. But on these bikes, you make a mistake and okay, you drop maybe 5 or 6 places, but you can make that up in a couple of laps.
But then I guess the fact that it's the third grade, that's, to me, sounds okay, because it's a learning, and it's part of those steps up to the higher level. So you don't really want people to fall off because they make a little mistake, do you? You want them to.
But shouldn't they be doing that in like national cups though, not the Moto, the global cup?
On the Rookies Cup, this is the World Championship. Here is the top.
True.
To to learn, you have other categories and the Rookies Cup to learn. And look, an example is I don't even remember the last world champions in Moto3. I think one was De La Porta, no? De La
Yes.
Porta, I
You already
think,
started
and the
watching
other
it
one-
this year, didn't you, Manuel?
and the only one is the Spaniard who was last year, whose name?
Arenas.
Arenas. Okay, both
Yeah.
of them, they have disappeared in Moto2.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It was like, in the past when a world champion stepped up, he was a world champion. His level was, in the following category, okay, as a rookie, but but De La Porta and Arenas, they have completely vanished,
Yep, MIA. Yeah, we'll talk about them in a little while when we get to Moto2, definitely. Just want to dig a bit deeper, Neil, into what you were just saying about, we were talking a little bit about the exciting racing, but the safety-related stuff that's going on. It has been quite concerning this year. Obviously, there was the tragedy earlier this year, and then we followed that up, a few weeks ago with Pedro spending the night in hospital as well, and then we had all this ridiculousness about the guys still trying to get a quali lap in when they'd gone through the checkered flag already, and we had guys slowing down on the penultimate corner on the last lap. Where does it end, mate? Like the guys are clearly trying to legislate the way into being sensible, but it's clearly not working. Where does it end? How do you think they fix this?
I think they've tried to, they started making some steps to try and fix it since that race in Barcelona, where they basically say, like, right, any sort of irresponsible riding is immediately met with a tougher, harsher penalty. So we saw that with Darren Binder in qualifying. I think at the Sachsenring, he was handed a ride-through penalty for crashing on his outlap. He crashed into another rider. And then what we had, I think, 5 riders in the Assen race have ride-through penalties.
Yep.
And obviously we know that's even tougher than a pit lane start. That does ruin your race. I think
It does,
Jalamasio is one of them. So I think this is what we're going to see. And if it continues, we're going to see some disqualifications, I think, just from the event outright.
They're not moving around.
Yeah. But then, you think, okay, they've got this under control, just hand out tougher penalties like they did in Germany. But then there was one of the free practice sessions at Assen where it was just idiotic what some of the teams and riders were doing, waiting until right until the end, and they missed the kind of the cutoff point to set another fastest lap, and then they're all riding like stupid. After that, it was just a mess, So it's I think the riders, they're obviously young and they're like so eager and they're super like charged up, but I also think that some teams might need to take a little bit of responsibility for this and educate them in a way where they're not asking them to go out at the end of sessions and push like hell. But this is another thing which is maybe a problem with the formula. Like, again, Aki Ayo was telling me that he was like, how can you say to a rider, if he knows at certain tracks that he's going to gain 1 to 1.5 seconds by getting a good toe, how are you going to tell a rider that wants to always see his name number one not to do that? I mean, so there has to be some kind of formula where there cannot be such big gains from slipstream, because that the riders are always going to take advantage of any opportunity they can get, because that's just the nature of being, in this competitive environment.
You mentioned Darren Binder before. I think I talk about him every week because I just want to cry and swear and everything for the couple that he's having a shit run.
Dirty last week, wasn't he?
Is he just unlucky? Is he making lots of mistakes? Is he being made an example of?
I think he has been unlucky. I think the penalty in Germany was a bit too much, in my opinion, but I can understand where they were coming from. He's been unlucky in that, he was taken out at the last corner in Jerez, but then there have been a few mistakes there as well.
Even that three places he dropped. Did he go out of track limits a couple of times? I thought it was only twice, the one. Oh, okay. They dropped. It was like drop him. It's like, come on, like. No. I think he did it twice on the last lap at Assen, and that's why he had to drop the 3 places. But I mean, Darren's one of the guys where I expected him to be. He's riding hard. He's riding really hard. Yeah.
But I think Acosta is just raised the level so much that these guys just can't deal with them.
Yeah, it seems like the only
the-
guys that can get anywhere near him are Garcia and Foggia at the moment, and that's they're still just racing for second most of the time, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, I think Garcia has been pretty impressive. He's managed to get some consistency together.
Yeah.
Foggia was always like a total enigma in that he would be fast at one place, but then nowhere for 3 weekends and you wouldn't see him. But if you look at the last 4 weekends, he's actually been there on each occasion. I think he scored 3 points in that time. He's clearly fast. He's on the fastest bike in the grid. So I think Foggia is maybe a guy that could come into contention in the second half of the season, but he still remains something of a mystery in why he just can't show that magic more often.
Exactly.
By the way, I would like to add my opinion about this crazy races in Moto3. Okay, look, I think the format is not the problem, because we see in the Rookies Cup they race like the Moto3 do. I mean, race in groups, one behind the other, one wheel attached to another wheel, and although some issues happened, but in the Rookies Cup you don't see dangerous situations like you see Moto3, in my opinion. And in my opinion, the reason is because the riders sure get taught how to race before the race. One thing is close racing, another thing is dangerous racing. And in the Rookies Cup, you don't see dirty actions. And I think that's because the people who run this championship explain the riders very well how to race and properly. And it's easier because it's just one owner of this championship. For sure there are rules. If you are dirty, you will not race the next race. This is my opinion, because close racing is not the problem. The problem is how the riders race.
Yeah, it seems in the Rookies Cup, like you say, they've got a bigger stick, because they've Red Bull have gone and taken all of these young lads from their various championships or wherever they're racing, and they've given them this opportunity and they're thankful for this opportunity. And so, as you say, they can sit all the riders down and just go, this is the rule, this is how it is. If you don't like it, then you're out for a week. Whereas it seems possibly in Moto3, do you think those guys have got more of an ego because and they're within their own little team? Do you think that's a factor?
I think that I think Neil mentioned it sideways. The thing is that many team owner, manager, they say something public and then they tell the riders to act differently.
Yeah.
The thing is that the penalty until now was so nothing that it was worth to try to make, because the penalty, you go 3 position backs, nothing in the race. That means nothing, And the first ones who to tell his riders, like Neil said, to tell his rider, hey, wait for somebody. If you get penalized, okay, by waiting, maybe you can do a front row, and then you get three position backs. But by no waiting, maybe you qualify 15.
Yeah,
understand?
Exactly.
So it's worth. It was worthy until now. So the thing is to be really harsh on the penalties. Imagine, for example, if you, after a rider getting 2 yellow cards, he is, how do you say, punished not to race in the next Grand Prix. This is a big problem for the team. The team has to find another rider. The
big
team has problems for the sponsor. So it will hurt when the manager get affected, not the riders.
Exactly. All right. So look, to wrap up the Moto3 conversation, Neil, what? Obviously, we're all saying that Pedro is going to win the championship this year, and barring anything crazy happening, because nothing ever crazy ever happens in Moto3, that's probably going to be the case. But what do you think we're going to see for the rest of the year as far as his competition? And do you think it will be a case of Garcia and Foggia, or do you think we're going to see your Binders and your McPhees step up later in the season?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to we'll have to see something from Darren and from John, and I think from Massey as well. I mean, they're just those guys are too good to not really feature at the front in Moto3 at the moment. So yeah, I think Pedro's going to see more variety, but then I think this is why things work out well for him, because he's managed to get a pretty nice buffer at the front of the championship. I think he's 48 points ahead at the moment. His lead has kind of been around 51, 53 points for, well, forever, basically since Jerez. And the thing in Moto3, as we all know, is that it's so varied that it's really difficult for the likes of Garcia to put together 3 wins. You know, Garcia is going to be first, then he's going to be fifth, then third, then first. You know, as long as Acosta's just there in the top 6 constantly, it's going to be really difficult for those guys to make consistent inroads on his lead. And Acosta has proved capable of being fast and fighting at the front everywhere. I mean, if you take away the France race, which was in the wet conditions, and he crashed in those conditions, I think the furthest he has finished from the winner is like, I don't know, 0.8 of a second. So he's always, even when he hasn't been winning or on the podium, he's been right there in the fight. And it's just maybe been 1 or 2 overtakes on the last lap that haven't really worked in his favor. That is held back. So I think he's in a really, really strong position. At the moment, I can't see anyone, overhauling them.
Yep, fair enough. And before we do move on to Moto2, did you notice Joel Kelso in the last few races? Because, you know, speaking of Aussies in there as well, there's now an Aussie in Moto3.
I did, yes. Got the chance to speak to Joel.
Manuel's like, who, what?
Yep, he seems like a nice kid, fast kid. I think you looked at his progression in Germany. He was like 4 seconds off in the first session, but by warm-up he was maybe 1 second off. So you know, there was clear progression there. And then he actually qualified quite well in Australia. I think he was inside the top 20, which was a pretty good feat. He got hit with a ride-through penalty though, that kind of ruined his race. But I mean, I was speaking to him, he said he's set himself up in Mallorca. He's working with Joan Mir's trainer. So, you know, he's in the right environment. He's working with the right people, and he you know, his intention to get into the World Championship next year. So yeah, maybe we'll see more of Joel in 2022. Nice,
good stuff. Let's keep an ear out for that name, definitely. Right, so Moto2. It's all about KTM in Moto2. It's exactly the same. It's the Remy and Raul show. What's your thoughts about what you've seen so far in Moto2? Besides,
I think as you say, it's all been about 2 guys, and no one else can really live with him at the moment. I don't know what Akiayo has done, but I mean, clearly that team has found the magic formula, magic setting with both of those bikes. I think both of them are at a level where they're kind of pushing each other on to even greater speed. And, you know, Raul sort of thinking like, okay, this guy's much more experienced, but his natural ability, his natural speed means that he's there. And Remy obviously is responding to that because he can have like some rookie teammate come in and beat him from the off. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. Like if Raul hadn't crashed out of the race in Germany, they would have had 5 straight 1-2 finishes, which is just unparalleled really, and unheard of in Moto2. So yeah,
that team spirit, like you mentioned, Neil, like we were talking about Masia and Pedro before, but yeah, like I feel like these guys are pushing each other. They're obviously competing, but they are boosting each other rather than trying to
trip each other up.
Seems that way at the moment.
Maturity.
They seem to be. They seem to be getting on.
Wait till we get to the end of the season, see how good they are.
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly.
You will see where this friendship will go to.
No. Oh, they're obviously still trying to better it, but they're not.
Yeah, but Neil, we've interviewed Remy a couple of times. He's a good friend of the show, and I don't remember if it's the first or the second time we spoke to him. We were talking about that killer instinct, and the comment from Remy was gold. It was something along the lines of, you have to be ruthless enough to, run over your own granny and then go back and kick her in the head.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes of the season actually was it was after the French Grand Prix, and someone asked Remy, like, "You've been so consistent recently. Like, what changed? What happened to you that caused you to sort of rein it in and become more consistent?" And he just said, "Flying through the air at 250 k's per hour."
Nice, and I love the Aussie accent, mate. That was a good one.
That was very good.
Yes.
My favorite Remy was not even a comment, was when he won his first race of the season and he gave this big long spiel about it, and then he went, what did he say? I'm speechless. I'm lost for words. Yeah. And he just talked for the last however long.
Just talk Simon Crayfar's ear off. Yeah, that was wonderful indeed.
Bloody legend.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, it's definitely, it's all about Remy and Raul, and again KTM. They've got something in the water down there in Austria, clearly. But I mean, outside of that, again, we've got some good friends of the show that we do talk to, and the one that I really wanted to have a chat with you about primarily is poor old Sam Lowes. Like, if you'd have spoken to anybody who has been watching Moto2 at the beginning of this year, it would have been a case of, Sam Lowes is going to win the world championship this year.
He's on my piece of paper too.
That was it. What do you think's happened, Neil? What's going on with Sam?
I mean, I honestly don't think that Sam has had like such a bad season. I think it's actually been pretty decent all in all. Okay, he's had 3 crashes.
Fourth?
He's fourth, yeah, at the moment. He's had 2 wins. He's had a further podium. Okay, he had those 3 crashes, and that is unfortunate, obviously. But there were three races that he definitely could have at least finished on the podium, maybe even won. That obviously was an issue, and Sam maybe hasn't always been the most consistent guy in the past, so it's a shame because of that. But if you put those 3 crashes, let's say finish third in each of those races, he would be right up there.
He'd be up there.
And in kind of recent weekends when he hasn't been quite there or quite on the pace, he's still managed to finish inside the top 7.
Yeah.
He rescued a 5th place in the Sachsenring. I think he was 14th on the second lap or something. So I think he's riding well. The mistakes were obviously unfortunate, but I think that Moto2, the level has just moved on this year. I think Raul and Remy are ahead of the game more so than, say, Luca Marini and Enea Bastianini were last year. I think Moto2 is just a more difficult class this year, just because the 2 strongest guys are so fast and so consistent.
So if you're Sam Lowes and you're sitting there, he obviously, I've not heard much talk about him having another shot at MotoGP. Obviously, we've got these other young guys that are going to go up next year. If you're Sam Lowes, do you sit there and, I mean, he's going to be in Moto2 again next year. I'm trying to think of what he's thinking. Where's his aspiration? Yeah, what's he trying to drive for?
I mean, I think that was maybe something that was a frustration for him earlier in the year, because when he won the 2 races in Qatar, lots of talk was revolving around Fernandez and Gian Antonio and Bezzecchi getting the chance in MotoGP next year, and Remy, obviously, and Sam was kind of out of the conversation. And I mean, like, he's clearly one of the fastest guys in Moto2. Dornan needs a British rider in MotoGP, and I know there's been a lot of talk about Jake Dixon, but if you
that's what I was going to say next. Yeah,
if you're looking at recent results, I think you would have to put Sam on a MotoGP bike ahead of Jake. But I think it's just the fact that I think Sam's 30 now. He's not a spring chicken in relative terms.
He is compared to all of us,
obviously. Yeah, but and as unfair as it is, that experience in 2017 with Aprilia, I mean, they did not treat him well at all. He never really got a free.
How long was it? Was he there for a season, or was it only because I wasn't watching? Oh, and it was one season, and it was just like drop back.
Exactly.
That's a shame.
Yeah. And after I think 5-6 races, they were already floating the idea of replacing him. It was just a horrible environment.
Motivating
for him to work in. So I don't really think he had a fair crack of it, but you do get the impression that people have judged him on that 1 year in MotoGP as, okay, yeah, he's not at this level, which I think is really unfair. But then this is such a, I mean, it's a brutal business, like so many tales of people not getting second chances. So,
but then, like you
kind of the way it is.
say, if like so BT are, you know, keen to get Jake up there, why not Sam? Is it more about the passport, or they just really like Jake?
I think it's the age.
Yeah, age thing, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
From what I can tell, Jake, I think is, young 20, early 20s, sorry. And then,
Yep. And on the flip side of the coin, like realistically, that's a fair assessment of Sam. But the flip side of the coin, if you're Jake right now, and you've had a bunch of DNFs, a couple of slow starts to the year because your wrist is healing, you're not competitive, and yet you're still being spoken about to go to MotoGP. What are you thinking when you're Jake Dixon? It's a crazy topsy-turvy world, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, it is. It is strange. I mean, Jake is 21st in the championship.
Yeah.
Wow. I think he would be the first to admit that it's not really gone to plan. And you do wonder whether that sort of promise of a MotoGP ride is maybe put a little bit of extra pressure on him, where he's sort of thinking, if only I can get like a couple of good results, before the summer break. If only I could get like a couple of top sixes, then I might, really be in the frame for this MotoGP ride. And maybe that sort of works against. But,
do you think he really does have to have a couple of those results by the end of the year to guarantee that move?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's. At the moment, it would be tough to imagine. I might be wrong, and Mamo might know a bit more about the kind of the current conversations going on in Petronas with regards to their MotoGP lineup for next year. But I would say in the current, as it stands, it would be difficult, I think, to see him stepping up. But we know he's a capable rider. Last year showed that he's a top six, maybe a podium rider in Moto2, and with the kind of the right circumstances, could be maybe even a race winner in the class.
Well, like Manuel said last week, all he needs is one or two okay results, and everyone's going to forget the first half of the season, and off he'll go.
Oh yeah, look, you are worth your last result. This is one of the the headlines in racing.
Yep.
And I want to comment about Sam. Neil underlined that he has done top 7 in all the races. No, Sam.
He's finished.
Yep.
I think you have to ask for much more than top 7 from Sam Lowe's, okay? Because he started winning, and then he had those crashes, and I think he switched to the mode. I have to start to add points, right? He switched to add points mode.
Finish the race. Yeah.
A challenger can't finish 7th. Sam is clearly one of the fastest riders in the category by far. This is clear. But his results now are, in my opinion, and looking from outside, very disappointing. I can understand that he's racing to his DNF for this season have been completed, right? But he has to give more. And for me, it's a surprise, because Sam is a guy that has always been very aggressive, very much going forward guy, So for me, there is something I don't understand very well. And regarding him going to MotoGP, look, forget it. Don't even put it on the table. It's absurd. If you think, I know that there is the heart, but let's look at the thing with engineering way, he's 30.
Yeah.
Look the result he is doing. And he had the bad luck to have been there in that Aprilia project in the worst moment.
Yeah.
The worst moment. This was like to bury him, It's like happening with Salvadori. It's the same. If you get off on the wrong bike, you are done. That's a problem. So Sam will never return to MotoGP, in my opinion. When? Why? Is he doing super results? No.
Yep.
Is he with 30? Okay. How long will his career? 3 years, 4 years? It sounds harsh, but you don't have to let that your feelings or personal feeling interfere in the reality, in my opinion. And Sam, in the second part of the season, I expect Sam returning and being there, fighting for the podium in each race.
Yep.
I am sure that he will try to do this.
And
in the case of Jake Dixon, the contracts for next year will be closed latest in September. So Jake has to show, if Jake shows something in Austin or in Thailand or in Malaysia, it's too late. He has to show it in the next 3 races.
So I was going to say, he's got 3 races. He's got Austria and Silverstone.
Yes, he had this Austria and Silverstone, which I imagine that he knows very well. And favorite track. He can be fast, but he has to show it now, because if not, the train is leaving the station and he's not on the train yet.
Yep.
And so there's extra pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Andras, Scott, it's not pressure; it's their job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
but
very true.
You have your pressure at the pressure.
Hey, no. But like Neil was saying, he can't just go out and race his best race because he's got all that in the back of his head that he has to perform in that.
If you don't want to have the pressure, don't turn into a professional rider.
Yeah,
it's you have to do the best result possible, and this is what it is to be a rider.
So we know that, or we think. So I always get caught by saying we know, but no, we think that there's still some spots up for grabs in the top flight in MotoGP for 2022. Do you think we might see, Neil, any more guys from Moto2 stepping up? Like, there's talk obviously around the VR46 team, and one of those VR46 riders from Moto2 coming up. Do you think there's going to be any other surprises that we might see from Moto2 go up to the top class next year?
I mean, a surprise for me is Di Giannantonio. I mean, he's going up with Gresini. I would be in the camp that would say he's rather fortunate to have earned that ride, because aside from his race in Jerez, which was outstanding, absolutely outstanding, he hasn't really offered that much, has he? I mean, like, you look at his recent results. There's been 3 DNFs in the past 4. Yep. He had the pace to fight with Remy and Raul in the Saxon Ring, yet was never in contention during that race. So yeah, I kind of feel that. I mean, he and his manager played an absolute blinder when they signed with Gresini for this year, with the clause to step up to MotoGP in 2022. I mean, that was a fantastic bit of business. Chapeau there. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously still some uncertainty with regards to Marco Bezzecchi and what he'll do next year. Will he be racing with the VR46 team? Would he maybe be considered for Yamaha if the VR46 team isn't the option for him? I mean, it's I don't know. It's tough to say, but no, I don't really see any other names from Moto2 being in contention, other than the ones that we've mentioned.
Yeah. Do you think in the next year or so, do you think we might see Augusto Fernandez up there? Because he's had some really good rides. He looks like a very promising rider.
He does, yeah. Although he's coming off the back of a tough year and a half, really. I mean, we were expecting Augusto. He signed for Mark VDS at the end of 2019 in kind of acrimonious circumstances. He left Cito Ponce's team, even though he had a contract for the next year with Cito to leave to go to Mark VDS. And we thought, oh, okay, well, he's gonna kick on. He's gonna fight for the championship, but he wasn't really ever there. And it was only in Assen, I think, that he got back in the podium. So yeah, we would need to see more, I think, from Augusto before that conversation starts. But yeah, you would say he's one of the guys that might have the talent to make it eventually.
You know what? I have been speaking with some MotoGP riders, and all of them mentioned the name that will be a surprise. Mentioned the name as a look at him because he's doing very well and he will be fast on a MotoGP. And for me, it was a surprise. And this name is Joe Roberts. All these riders think that Joe rides very MotoGP style, and that he could do very well. For me, really, it was a surprise. And they say, no, don't be mistaken. Have a look. Joe is a fast guy, okay? And in the case of Di Giannantonio, the problem of Di Giannantonio that his head is already in MotoGP. He's not racing Moto2 for the championship like Hungary. He is already thinking that's the problem.
Yeah,
of many riders that they
thought of that, Manuel. Yeah.
Do you think he's racing for Moto2? No, he's racing. He goes out and races, and he knows that doing any result, he will be MotoGP.
Yep. So he's basically got a 6-month-long summer holiday coming up.
Yeah, or racing for nothing.
Yeah. You just go out and have fun.
He has his deal done. And the story of GD Giannatoni is very funny because he was, some years ago, I don't know how many, he was a Gresini racer, Team Gresini, right? Then he left the Team Gresini and he took Team Gresini to court.
Oh.
Yes, so they
Really?
were having a big issue in court, and being in court, both Gresini spoke with him, and he returned to the team, and then they canceled what was in the forum, you know. So
Wow.
really an Italian story.
Yeah, I was about to say that's very Italian, isn't it? Yeah, we're best friends now. No, we hate each other. Now we're best friends.
Yeah, more or less it was like this. And he returned, and by returning, he got signed a contract that if in the middle of this season he was in a certain position in the championship, he automatically would step up. And it seems that this position was, he was in that situation. So he was promoted, but really on the track, and to be realistic, he has not deserved to.
Yeah.
He did what he needed to do.
And you say that situation there, Manuel, where he's not fighting for anything, but that's I mean, he should be. He has everything at his disposal this year. He's got a Cadillac chassis. He's got the team. He's got the experience now. This is his third year in Moto2. It shouldn't be this way that he's kind of just waiting for
but
MotoGP.
It's attitude.
This is his chance. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see, Remy could be exactly in the same situation, but Remy go out every race and he rides his ass off, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Neil, can you just quickly, just want to go back to Joe Roberts, because he's another person that I was really expecting a lot out of this season, definitely. And it's been very disappointing. He's falling off a lot and just making silly mistakes. What do you think's going on there?
I think it was good up until Mugello, where he kind of cruelly lost that third place on the last lap because he exceeded track limits by this much. But then the last 3 races were pretty difficult, I think. And I think Joe is one of those guys that puts a real lot of pressure on himself, and also maybe finds it difficult to, I don't know. It was quite interesting last year when he was approached by Aprilia at Portimao to ride a MotoGP this year. And I remember speaking to him over that weekend, and he was kind of saying stuff like, I don't deserve it. And
do the accent?
Sometimes, no, I won't embarrass myself further. But it's like certain riders have this automatic setting in their brain where it's like, I am the best, I deserve to be here. And you sometimes get the impression that Joe sometimes has to convince himself that he is worthy of.
He takes a bit to bounce back. If he has a bad race, he seems to really struggle to bounce back. Like it's almost like he starts that race thinking about the last one instead of clean slate. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I think, up until recently, like his name was still in the mix for maybe the Aprilia seat next year. And you just wonder whether that sort of thought of, if I could just win a race, maybe this would lead to a signing for MotoGP next year, whether that had some kind of effect on him. I think also he's in an all-Italian team, and he's working with Giovanni Sandi. I don't know if you know him, Manuel. Old
Sandi, yes. It's a myth. He's a myth in the championship. Exactly.
Was an engineer with Aprilia in the 90s and worked with Biaggi and all these guys, but doesn't really speak any English, speaks very limited English. And you just wonder whether that...
Does Joe speak Italian?
Language barrier.
No. Yeah, I don't think
How does that work? They draw pictures?
So
like this.
Yeah, I think Giovanni's...
That's what we see on the TV when he goes and sits down and he just goes...
Yeah.
That's all he has.
Yeah.
That could well be.
Yeah. I mean, there are obviously other people in the team that speak English, and I think they're able to translate. But
you're still not going to get the whole message.
It must be difficult to have that real sort of intimate You know, when a rider and a crew chief are kind of almost as one, they know exactly what the other person's thinking. It must be quite difficult when there's that language barrier in that situation. You wonder whether that is maybe something that's just a little influence on what's going on there.
Yeah, quite possibly, quite possibly. Mate, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Before we wrap up, we have touched on some of the moves up to MotoGP a little bit while we've been chatting today. Last week, I'm sure you watched the whole episode from last week, but for everybody that hasn't seen it, we of course we had the wrap up of what we thought of the moves within MotoGP for 2022. What are your views on some of the moves that you think may be most likely or haven't been announced yet, or even some of the ones that have been announced? What do you think about the 2022 rider lineup in MotoGP?
I mean, it's pretty exciting, really. What we thought was more or less all scheduled to take place is now kind of been blown apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you see some of the names that are being linked or being discussed as potential replacements for Maverick or for Valentino, I mean, I saw in the British press that Johnny Ray was being linked. Was one of the possible, as well as, you know, one or two others. So, you know, the likes of Garrett Gerloff, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would be quite exciting to see someone from Superbikes come over.
Yeah. Toprak's been mentioned a few times.
He obviously turned that seat down, which is quite perplexing. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously very exciting, and I mean, what will Maverick do is another pretty interesting.
What if he doesn't get a seat anywhere? Is that a possibility that no one will take him?
No,
I don't think so.
He can get a seat somewhere.
Where, Manuel? Where do you think?
No, in the last days, Ducati has said that there is no place for Maverick in the Ducati family.
Right. So not in the VR 46 team, nowhere.
I am still surprised about that, but they said it. Davide Tardozzi apparently said it officially.
Okay.
So I have spoken also with the Aprilia people in the last days, and they are pushing to the maximum to have Maverick in the team. And the one who is pushing more, I don't know if I explained this to you the last episode, is Aleix Espargaró.
Yeah, because they were teammates at Suzuki, as you were saying. That's right. So it brings the whole gang back together.
Yeah, they fly together in their private jet to the races. The two Espargaró brothers and Maverick, they leave Andorra together, back and forward. And obviously they know, they speak. So Aleix is the one who is pushing more for that. We will see. We will see what Maverick does.
When do you think? When will we hear? When will we hear something? I don't know. Is that what we've been waiting for the last week that you won't tell us?
With Maverick, you never know what's going to happen.
Indeed.
Never know.
Yep. What else, Neil? What other moves do you think are out and about? What about Rins? Do you think Rins will remain with Suzuki, or are we going to see a move there?
I mean, he's got a contract for next year, so I you know, Suzuki doesn't seem to me like the kind of factory that would rip up that contract. So yeah, I think Rins is set to be there. I mean, I think it's quite interesting. There's obviously been lots of talk about Raul Fernandez, and I think it seems pretty likely now that he's going to be on Tech 3 KTM next year. So Remy and Raul will continue being teammates in 2022. I think that's going to be super interesting. Just seeing how Raul can, you know, deal with such a rapid kind of ascension. And
do you think he's going to go up, Neil, next year?
I think everything points to that. Yeah, it does look like that is going to happen. I think
Manuel owes me a beer if that happens.
I think you will pay me a lot of beers.
Let's just get together and drink lots of beers.
So if not him, then who's the option? It's got to be Danilo still, right?
He'd stay.
Yeah.
I think so,
look, everything now is speculation. We can just Raul said, for example, in Assen was the last race. He said, KTM wanted me to step up, but 99% I will continue in Moto2 because Raul wants to stay in Moto2. For me, it would be a mistake, but anyhow. But then he said also, in any case, in the summer break, we will discuss this in KTM. So this 1% may happen.
Yeah, may go whoop.
if the boss says, because KTM, their contract is, I put you on the bike, I decide.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
basically it's that way
Yep.
around. And I was just thinking, look, in the last years we have seen two super top guys, how do you say, cutting their contracts they had. One was Jorge Lorenzo with Honda,
Yep.
who had a 2-year contract and said, I leave. And now Maverick having another millionaire contract with Yamaha, I leave. So, you know, the things are changing in MotoGP, because it was so strange to imagine. People still ask me, how can Maverick give away an 8 million euros contract?
It's not about the money.
Because first, they don't know Maverick. Maverick doesn't move by money.
Exactly.
And
None of these guys do.
And second, he has enough money. Okay, 8 millions are 8 millions, but he has enough. Look, let me explain you a short anecdote. When he signed this contract, he just broke with Yamaha, he went to Japan. He was just wanting to renew the contract. And when he returned, he told me, wow, without even asking, I got 2 million more.
Well,
without even
just because
asking.
he went there.
Manuel, sorry, as I say, so you mentioned that, and then what Lorenzo did. Do you think that will impact the length of contracts moving forward, or they're just probably, I suppose, they're breaking the contract, so that's not going to impact? Like the rider's the one breaking the contract, not the.
They were allowed to break the contracts because the results were under what the team expected. Okay, that's why they allowed. But I can imagine that Honda would allow Lorenzo to break the contract to go back to Ducati.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was also a benefit for the brand.
Way out for them as well.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to quickly ask, Neil, is the void at Yamaha. Who do you think is going to fill that Petronas seat? You know, we're seeing maybe Morbidelli might go up to the monster team, and there's going to be a big, 2 seats maybe at Petronas. So, you know, is it going to be Jake or who else is going to be? Who do you think is most likely to be in that Petronas team next year?
I think Garrett Gerloff is probably a name that you would say is a decent chance of being there. I mean, he's been really impressive in World Superbikes recently. Obviously, having an American in the Premier class would be a big thing for the series.
Talking about passports,
for Yamaha. And, you know, Garrett has shown recently that he's no mug. You know, he was quite impressive at Assen, really, when he stepped in for Franco. Also, he's been going to places like Donington Park, like quite difficult tracks in World Superbikes, and being on the podium in his first weekend there. So, you know, he's clearly got an ability to learn quite quickly. I think that makes sense on all fronts. And then beyond that, I'm honestly not really too sure. It seems like such a lottery, so many names being bandied around. It's tough to know. But I mean, you know, first of all, you have to find out, you know, is Franco going to stay there next year? Because it seems that the team are putting out messages that that's far from a certainty. But you know, if Yamaha basically decides that they want him in the factory team, then you know, they could probably pay Petronas quite a lot of money or give them some kind of discount on next year's package to allow that to happen. So, I mean, there's lots of interesting angles still yet to be confirmed.
Indeed.
And Neil, the option of Johnny Ray, do you think it's serious?
I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, it was reported by, you know, I think it came from Johan Stigefeld, and you never know whether he's just putting names out there to try and distract. But it was an interview with Matt Burt from Motorcycle News. Matt Burt obviously is a very credible journalist with very good sources. And Johnny Ray, I think, for a long time, has thought if the right offer is there for MotoGP, he would take it. He's done everything he can possibly do in World Superbikes. He's smashed every single record to smithereens. I think he would definitely, if he would be up for it. It's just about whether Yamaha would be willing to take on a guy that has such limited Grand Prix experience at his age.
Does anyone ever look at Alex Lowe's? Does Alex Lowe's ever make it into these discussions?
I don't think so.
Because he's up there, isn't he, in World Superbikes? He seems to be achieving.
He
Yeah,
rode
I
well,
mean,
so is Scott Redding, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, I don't think I haven't heard of Alex Lowe's being mentioned in this conversation, or Scott. So I don't know. But yeah, the Johnny one's an interesting one. There was a situation in 2017, Manuel might remember, when things were going horribly with Suzuki and Iannone at the time. And there was talk of maybe Iannone leaving at the end of 2017. In the end, it didn't happen. But, Johnny Ray was really quite eager at that point to take over that seat if possible. He does have a clause in his contract in World Superbike, apparently, that would allow him to leave the Kawasaki team if a MotoGP offer came up. So I would say...
clearly thinking about it then.
Yeah, but don't you think
it would be a huge surprise?
It should be an official offer, going to Petronas team, and you don't know. Imagine they give him a 2 years old bike like they do with Morbidelli.
He's not going to want that. He's a world champion.
Claro. If he comes, he probably would be to be in the factory team. And the other thing is the superbike riders. It's really a gamble, because the guy who has impressed more in superbike before Johnny was the Texan who
Colin
Edwards
or Spies.
Ben Spies, yeah.
Spies. When he arrived he first win everything in the US. Then he came to World Superbike and massacred everyone. And there has been no really superbike rider who has done well in Grand Prix. And this is always a risk, because I don't know why, if the levels are different, if the bikes are so different, but it's super risky to take a World Superbike rider with this age, with no time to really grow, could be more a marketing stuff.
But, you're talking about the best World Superbike racer ever, and a guy with a riding style that could be pretty good for a Yamaha. Yes, I think the age obviously counts against Johnny, but I don't know. I think
would be interesting. Would be very interesting. I would like to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see a couple of seasons in MotoGP. Might finish him off nicely, indeed. Look, guys, it's been absolutely wonderful having this chat today. Thank you so much, Neil, for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday. What have you got up your sleeve for the next few weeks, mate?
I think there's a bit of relaxing by the beach. There might be a few glasses of sangria imbibed during that time.
Just a
few.
Perhaps, yeah. And I've got plans to go. My girlfriend is French, so plans to go and meet her family at the end of July. So I'm also doing French language classes to try and sound in some way presentable to the...
I can help you out with that. I'm pretty
baguette.
Right.
Oh la la. We have to say oh la la.
Oh la la.
Yeah,
that's it. Well, mate, you have an absolutely amazing break, and we look forward to hearing your dulcet tones on the TV again soon.
And no more bag and Bon Jovi. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I heard the other day. Surely they must be at least 3/4 of the way there by now, right? Bon Jovi. It's been that long.
They're just past halfway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Indeed. So, look, Andrew, before we go, have you got any messages for the viewers and listeners out there?
I don't actually, but all I want to say is I've heard that Danny Pedrosa might get the wild card in the next race. Is that?
Yeah, I heard that too. You might get a wild card.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, that's the typical. We say here in Spain. Pay attention, the wolf comes, and at the end they advertise it so much that when the wolf comes, nobody trusts. So we don't know what is going to happen with Danny.
All right, we'll wait and see. But I am grateful. I know it's been a bit boring these last few weeks for us lay types over here. Lay persons, but we've got lots to talk about with all these seats happening, and I'm just going to go back and watch some old races. If anyone's got any recommendations, let me know. And what do we got? Is it 3 weeks to go?
We've got another 3 and a bit weeks. That's right. Yes.
We're like, Emmanuel and Neil were like, yes.
Yeah, and we were like,
holiday. Like, plus it's winter here in Australia, so you know
yeah, it's horrible.
We got nothing to do.
As soon as I finish this, I'm putting my dressing gown back on. I'm freezing my off here in this t-shirt. It's horrible. Indeed. So look, ladies and gentlemen,
okay, guys,
thank you very much.
Neil, thank you very much, Neil. Gracias.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Manuel. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and check out all the socials. Check out the Pecino Report. Check out pecinogp.com, and make sure you watch some of those races from the last few years. Take it easy, guys. Bye.
Bye.